Hi, it's Tim Hagen from Progress Coaching, and welcome to another episode of Coaching Conversations. And I wanted to make you aware of something very cool that we're doing on a subscription basis, and we'll put a link in each one of our episodes. But every Wednesday, we're going to be doing what we call an audio podcast workshop. That workshop will be roughly about 14 to maybe 20 minutes per episode, with each month having a theme from a coaching model, using feedback strategically, to coaching self-awareness, and so on. So if you could look in the body or in the content description of each episode, and you will see a link where you can join this subscription. These are literally 4 workshops every month teaching specific strategies to address a particular area of workplace coaching as it relates, again, to things like awareness, motivation, teamwork, and what have you. Here's the cool thing. It's only $10 per month, and each month you will get a handout that we will follow along with. So we also give you a tool for you to take notes as we go through each episode. We hope you'll check it out.
You know, when I think about coaching and I think about self-awareness, and, you know, I read other thought leaders' materials, and there's so many great ones out there. And I go back to, you know, when you think about all the challenges we have from engagement and attitude and anxiety and mental health and performance and layoffs and work and time management, I mean, we have 1,000 topics when it comes to developing people. Now, I'm going to try to simplify it down to 2 fundamental things. 2 fundamental things. Now, I'm going to use a political conversation. Now, I'm not going to give you my political belief system. I'm not interested in sharing of whether I'm a Republican or a new, independent or a Democrat. That's not the objective of the story. Yet I want to share with you a conversation I had with somebody. And I'm not saying this person was wrong for their beliefs. What I was asking were questions around reality. So it was a local local government issue, and somebody was saying they really want this one expenditure that this one candidate was touting, and it was really expensive. Now, I'm not against doing things that are socially or economically responsible, yet I have one fundamental question. And I asked this person, I said, how are we going to pay for it? And the person said, well, you know, that's not my concern. I said, but actually it is, because it will be your taxes. And so when I think about the conversations we have in the workplace as well, think about how often when someone doesn't get a job, I've used that example. Do we react rationally? Do we literally say out loud, you know, that person was more, qualified than me, or I was underqualified? So the point being is, when we're having these conversations, it goes back to 2 things: self-awareness and reality. We don't deal with reality because often when we have change, disappointment, adversity, do we calmly react or do we emotionally react? We typically emotionally react. So what's so funny about it is that when we're having conversations with people, we don't have issue or strategy type conversations. We typically have emotional conversations. So when you give someone constructive feedback, it's very rare that someone looks at you and says, I haven't thought of it from that perspective. First of all, thank you for the insight. Most people fold their arms, roll their eyes, or they start to think why the feedback was inaccurate. So let me go back to my scenario. So my friend said, well, I don't care. That's not my problem. I said, so let me ask you something. If I came to your house and I ordered a bunch of new windows for your home, and I just said, pay for them, what would you say to me? And she said, well, I wouldn't let you do that. And I said, well, that's obviously why we vote, right? And she said, right. But I said, we still don't know how it's being paid for. So when you say, that's not my concern, wouldn't that affect your taxes? She said, yes. And I said, so, well, how much? And she said, well, I don't know. I said, so if I came to your house and ordered those windows and said, oh, by the way, these are great windows. Oh, by the way, I don't know the cost. Would you go forward? She said, no. I said, let me just challenge you on something. Our community is our house. And she stopped. I said, I'm not saying you shouldn't believe in what you're believing in. I'm just asking you from a realistic standpoint, how are we going to do this? And she paused and I said, I'm not asking you to change your view. I just want to be fiscally responsible. So often when we deal with issues, people lack self-awareness. And I've said it 100 times. I love the book Insight by Tasha Eurich. When 95% of the people said, oh yes, I'm highly self-aware. And then she tested them and found out only 10% of people were somewhat aware, meaning that's, 80 to 85% of us are just fooling ourselves. We have blind spots. We all have blind spots. So when we lack self-awareness, then we really don't deal with reality. Let me give you a second one. Recently had a conversation again with someone passed over for a promotion, and they were upset, and they said, I'm just going to take the company benefit of a leave of absence, and she was going to claim, some mental health issues. And I thought, wait a minute, there are people out there really struggling with mental health. You just went for a promotion. How are you going to do that job if you struggled with mental health? So she lacks self-awareness of how that would come off. Number two, realistically, she wasn't being truthful with herself. She was not, without going into detail, she was not qualified for the job. Quite frankly, on paper, they shouldn't have interviewed her, but they wanted to because it was an internal person. So the funny thing is, we don't look in the mirror very well. And if we don't look in the mirror, our reality is skewed. Think about reality shows today. We kind of live, some of us who watch those shows, in this fantasy world because you don't typically date 30 women or 30 guys on a television show. Think about 30 women or 30 guys going on a television show, and they're going to date that one person, and they're all fighting for the person. Wouldn't like half of them in reality say, you know what, he's not my type, she's not my type, I don't really get along with them, but they all want to stay on the show. Is that really reality? So what we have to do as coaches is ask questions. What are you going to do to handle that? What are you going to do diplomatically? What have you learned about yourself? From a reality standpoint, what do you think you're specifically dealing with? Or realistically, what are you going to do to deal with that situation factually and objectively? When people have self-awareness and they deal with reality, there's greater accuracy. There's greater self-awareness. There's greater understanding of perception. Thank you for listening to another episode of Coaching Conversations by Tim Hagen and Progress Coaching. Now, our company is always coming out with new and innovative solutions to help leaders coach their employees. And recently, we just created a new service called Coach to You, where leaders can pick and choose topics and assign 7 to 21-day programs for employees to learn and, more importantly, apply actions and then reflect and share what they're going to do going forward as a result of the learning. It's called Coach to You. We're literally bringing coaching to your employees. If you're intrigued, we'll have a link in each one of our episodes where you can get more information. And again, thank you so much for listening to another episode.